Thank you very much, Ying. And I will mostly speak as a scholar of Roberto Gotti. So I try to be brief and let's see that I will speak about the dialogue between the master of the past and our modern school. And our main question is how has been possible to reconstruct a martial art from books. And talking about European martial art, let's say that this art has been a long time being partially forgotten, partially transformed through the passing of time. And today a rising community of practitioners of historical European martial art are interested in reconstructing and interpreting the historical fight books. So the sources are except from some rare and cases of oral tradition, which are especially located in South Italy, for example. But the main sources are historical fight books and treatises of the time, usually written by master at arms. And the technical information of the books is necessary, but as well as the presence of iconography, both in the treatises. So, for example, in the fight books, we have a lot of images useful for better understanding of the technical teachings. But when we talk about iconography, I like to point out that it's important to extend our view on all the visual information that comes from the time. So, for example, artistical representation of battles and duels, but at the same time also artistical scene that can say things to us about the life of the warriors of the time, even not on depicting specific duels or battles. And for example, this is a beautiful images of putti, which are doing actual wrestling techniques, and it's very important to use them in our understanding, to extend our understanding. So speaking of martial art of the ancients, we must also understand that it's something deeply related to the society and cultural life, everyday life. So, for example, here we have a beautiful image of a game in the Florence of 15th century, which is basically a martial training for young people. And it's part of the life, it's part of the city life. And speaking about Italian tradition, we have fight books beginning from the 15th century with Master Fiore dei Liberi, and a lot of, a big variety of production of treatises about fencing and martial art. Here's a partial list of authors, but I'd like to focus on our master, which is Achille Marozzo, which published his books in 1536. And as you can see from the contents, it's speak about a lot of a variety of weapons, and this variety, as well as the typology and information that Marozzo gives us on his life, speaks about an art which is still deeply embedded to the reality of the battlefield and still connected to the warrior's life, not as the declaration of later masters that say that fencing progressively abandoned the reality of the battlefield. So at the same time, Marozzo was part of a tradition because he inherited a long time tradition of martial art, and he's refined it, but still keeping an important link to the warrior reality. But of course, this vast production is as well given to us not in a simple way, because the complexity of the master, probably on purpose, is that we have to study it in a very deep way in order to understand and to extract information from it. An example is that all the information that he gives us on the footwork are in three lines for the entire book, and the last all the other information are through implicit teaching. So it's really important to give all ourselves in the interpretation of the master. So let's jump to modern day master, and I think that the depth of understanding of Roberto Gotti school has been well presented in his previous speaking. So I will be very brief, and I'll try to highlight what I think are key features of his approach. So respect of the ancients means that we must believe that ancient masters know their art, and we as modern scholar, we have the duty to try to understand them and try to be as close as possible to the reality of the time, and not the opposite. And at the same time, a very important capacity to ability to merge all different kind of experiences and make them work together. So. But at the same time, the syncretism of a vast variety of informations has been necessary to be paired with the ability to focus the view on some particular aspect and some particular practice. So, for example, the two-handed sword of Maestro Achille Marozzo, which is the weapon from which Roberto has started his study. Speaking about the method of study, we have an important necessity of repetition that go from theory to practice. So the analysis of the text, the analysis of the source need to be the first step, and then we have to go to the practice, which is of course on an understanding which is limited by the first steps, but then the embodied understanding, the experience that comes from the practice can be brought back to the understanding of the source. And so we have cycles of passage between theory and practice that build up the experience, both in the practitioner and then in the understanding of the ancient art. But at the same time, we can use transversal studies on other masters in order to highlight the universal and fundamentals of the ancient art. And again, we have cycle of studying that go from the particular technique to the general system of the master. And going back, those different processes can inform each other and build up through the time, through the sacrifice needed of personal life to bring up a deep connection to the lesson of the master. And as example, I also want to talk about the development of specific training tools in order to develop understanding of the fundamentals, such as, for example, the footwork, starting from the Marozzo teaching on the star, on the symbol on the ground, that through the understanding of medieval masters like Fiore de Liberi and Filippo Vadi, arrived to the development of physical training tools as the one in the picture, and the same goes for cuts and that are usually practiced on the wooden pole, and for thrust on the suspended ring. So through the practice of these basic skills, we arrive to more complex set of lessons like the Assalti of Dumani, which are the lesson of Maestro Marozzo as long sequences of codified action. So forms that Maestro Marozzo used to give us all the possible attitude to the fighting with the two-handed sword, giving and covering all the possible distances between the fighters. And in those lessons, we have an implicit understanding of the system of the master that we can train and use to build up. At the same time, training bodies of practitioners, but at the same time, understanding of a school. And the tool of the Assalto can be used in a vast variety of contexts. So, for example, solo application at different speed and different rhythms, but at the same time paired application or group exercise in order to highlight specific skills for today's scholars. And here a brief example of the salto in a paired application during a public demonstration, just to show you what is the final, or what is one of the possible application of the assalto. At the same time, after developing basics and fundamental skills and and extending the set of technical skills thanks to the assalto, we arrive to free combat and competitive sport context, which are important tools in order to test and to give a context of validation for the practitioner, but as well as for our models and our understanding of the Marozzo art. So finally, a few words about the tools of practice, which are both equipment tools, like the use of swords, created to be flexible and safe, but at the same time light, as closer as possible to originals, but as well as protective gears in order to give us a safe practice. But also the importance of places, like an example in the two places and two schools of the Brescia reality, which are one in the ancient, the old school in the wood, which is a space natural and very close to a spiritual place, close to an energy to the past, and at the same time a modern space for sport application, for attracting new people to the practice of this art. And finally, I like to say that martial art of the ancient is not anymore historical in the sense of forgotten or that, but it has been brought back to life, and is today something alive and being able to expand and extend, and new directions can be found in the extension to different authors or in the extension of the Marozzo system. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, of course, I will be very pleased to reply.